Howdy. In this video, I want to talk about transformations when we're given some piecewise function like this, or we're given something that doesn't necessarily fit nicely into an equation, and they ask us to do transformations with that. So the first thing that they're asking us to do in this problem is state the domain and the range. So I'm going to come along here and label a few things. This is -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's -6, 7, 8. Here's -9, and the x values, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so notice I was labeling things where I had discontinuity. I was labeling the places where the graph jumped in some capacity. So the domain, it includes -9. Oh, this is the domain. It includes -9, it cruises along. It does include -6. There's discontinuity at -6, but it still is defined at -6. There's discontinuity at -1, but it's still defined at -1. There's discontinuity at 2, but it's still defined at 2. There's discontinuity at 4, but it's still defined at 4. And then it goes all the way to 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, but it does not include 7. Okay, so that's the best way to describe the domain. You could list all the individual pieces, but that gets tedious, and I think this is a more efficient and effective way to answer the question. Range, it goes as low as, let's see, 1, 2, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's just pretend that that's sitting on that value, and I'm not trying to make your life difficult and say it's like -6.1. That would just be silly. But it does include that point, so let's say from -6, and then it keeps going from here up to, now notice we have a hole here, but it's defined over here and here, so we're good. So we don't need to make a note of that. But then when I get to -1 on the y value, it's not defined at -1 on any of these things, and then I have a gap from -1 until +1. So we're going to go from -6 to -1. We don't include -1. Then we jump up and we start at +1 and we cruise on up. What is this? +1, 2, 3, 4 to +4, but it's an open circle at 4, and so there we go. So that's the domain and the range of that function. Okay, so then they say, let's graph g of x, where g of x is equal to f of -x. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're going to do a reflection. So let's think about this for just a second. We want, so sometimes it's helpful to kind of make a table. You don't have to do this, but if you forget, okay, wait, did that reflect over the x-axis or does that reflect over the y-axis? And I'm not really sure. What we can do is we can say, okay, what's my x value? And so then what's my f of x value? What's the y value from the original function is what we're going to look for. And then what's my g value? Well, g is equal, you know what, hang on just a second. I wrote too big. Okay. That solves my problem. G of x is equal to f of -x. Okay, so what I want to look at here is I want to find, okay, looking back at this graph, I have the point, let's say I have the point negative, well, let's say I have, let's let x, when x equals, do I want to make a chart this way? I should have thought about this a little bit before I jumped in. Okay, you know what? We don't need this column. We want, so say when x is 9, g of 9 is going to be f of -9. Okay, so g of 9 is going to be the point f of -9. Well, f of -9 is right here. And so that's got a closed circle at 2. So I'm going to come down to my graph, and I'm going to have this value, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then up 2, I have a point right here. Okay, and then I have, when x is 6, I'm looking at my graph of f of -6. Well, f of -6 is going to be this point right here. Okay, so that's also that value of 2. Okay, so this was 9, 8, 7, 6. So we've got this little line right here, and this was a reflection. Well, this line right here reflected over the y-axis and moved over here, which if you realize what this reflection does for you right here, when it's inside it reflects over the y, and when it's outside it reflects over the x, then you can just start drawing all these things and life is good. If you forget, then that's when you want to start thinking through the chart. So then the next thing I have is at 6, I'm also going to have an open circle at positive 6, I'm going to have an open circle at -1. And then I go at positive 1, I'm going to have an open circle. So this, I'm taking this value here and reflecting that one, and then I reflected that one. Okay, so that's kind of what I was looking at. And then this is what, -1, 2, 3, so 4.5. 1, 2, 3, so 4. 1, 2, 3, so 4.5. That doesn't seem right. Did I count wrong? This is -1. Yep. -1, -2, -3.5. My bad. Okay. So -1, positive 1, 2, 3.5, and I was down at 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's kind of that vertex of that little piece of a parabola or something. Okay, so sketch, do the best you can there. And then when x is equal to 1, that's gonna be g of 1 is equal to f of -1, which in this case is 1 right here. So I'm now taking this little piece, and so it's gonna go from 1, 1 to -2, 3. -2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And it's kind of like this little curved thing right in here. I don't know, something like that. And then I have the next one from 2. We have an open circle here, and then we have a closed circle of -4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so each of these pieces are getting reflected. I'm going to skip that last one, but you have the right idea. On this one, and then they say find g of -4. Well, g of -4 would be equal to g of -4 is like saying f of -4, which is like saying, okay, so what's f of 4? Well, I can look back on the graph and say, what's f of 4? F of 4 right here is positive 1. So this is equal to positive 1. And if I look at my graph here, g of -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is indeed positive 1. So we can think through that in two different ways. Let's talk about the transformations on the next few, and then I want you to practice, and I'm pretty sure I have a key already that I will go find and post. This one now is asking us to reflect over the x-axis. So anything that had been up top is now going to move down to the bottom on this one because of that negative. This one we're going to shift to the right 1 and up 2. So if I have a point any point that I have, like this point right here, is going to shift to the right 1 and up 2. And so we'll now have this new, I don't like the color orange. I'm an Aggie. We don't like orange. Okay, so we start here, and I'm just cruising along. This one had gone to here. So that's going to be that new piece. So draw that in. Another thing that you can do is say, okay, well, like g of 8, I lied, g of -8 would be equal to f of -8 minus 1 plus 2. Okay, so this is saying g of -8 is equal to f of -9 plus 2. Well, f of -9 is this point right here, which was this positive 2. So this is positive 2 plus 2, which is equal to 4. So that's how I know I have the point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -8, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how I would algebraically get that point. Okay, this one is a vertical stretch. So this is going to take everybody and pull it by a factor of 2 away from the x-axis. So I could say, okay, well, what is g of -9? Well, that's going to be equal to 2 times f of -9. Well, once again, f of negative 9 is positive 2. So this is 2 times positive 2, which means that I now have g of negative 9 is equal to 4. So I think this is negative 9. Well, that's not what I should have just drawn a little tick mark. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is that new point. Okay. Good luck. Go practice. I hope this kind of helps clear things up. Let me know if you have questions and you want me to clarify this again. Okay, good luck.